Anybody that plays an instrument eventually starts learning some little lead licks. That's like your bag of tricks, you know?
True.
And what this episode is your production bag of tricks. We've got 5 little secret tips that are just like, this will make it better and more exciting.
This is the Self-Recording Band Podcast, the show where we help you make exciting records on your own, wherever you are, DIY style. Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band Podcast. I am your host, Benedict Tide, and I'm here with my friend and co-host, Malcolm Owen Flood. How are you, Malcolm?
Hello, I'm good, man. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good as well. Thank you. Nothing spectacular happened today. So yeah.
I mean, it's Friday. That's pretty sweet.
That's pretty sweet. It's not our usual podcast day. So that's why you didn't hear that, but I just completely screwed up the intro and I introduced a completely different podcast and Malcolm did window stop me. I wouldn't even have noticed. Yeah, that's because it's like Friday and it's late, at least for me. And yeah. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. It is Friday morning for me here, so I'm like just getting going, having my second AeroPress coffee, and yeah, things are good.
Good. I stopped, by the way, because of your recommendation of the Why We Sleep book. I posted it on Instagram a couple of days ago, or yesterday or something. Because of that book, I stopped drinking coffee in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. I don't know for how long I will do that, but I wanted to try it, what happens, and see what happens, because I'm one of those people who, like, I can't sleep very well. At least I think I can. When I drink coffee late, it didn't like affect my ability to fall asleep at all. But right. I've learned now that this doesn't mean that the quality of sleep is the same, exactly. And that it still could be like not good. So I stopped now, and I'm just curious if I feel any positive effects from this, if I'm less tired maybe or something. Yeah, and I'm curious.
Our mutual friend Stephen Ward also posted that he was loving a book that I also shared to him. So I felt like this kind of book guru that morning when I woke up and had messages from both of you about how much you were enjoying books I'd recommended.
That's awesome.
I just started a book club, a newsletter.
Yeah, which book did you recommend to him?
I recommended The Obstacle is the Way.
Oh, you did that to me as well. I read it as well.
Oh my God, I love that book. Did you like it?
I liked it a lot, and since then I've subscribed to the Daily Stoic blog, and I read it every day. It's like part of my morning routine right now. I read like those short emails that he sends out, like this very short blog posts and emails. And I listened to his podcast for a bit. I read the book, of course, and I started taking journaling a little more serious again. So I'm totally into the whole stoicism thing right now. It really,
awesome.
Yeah, it's super awesome way to live and think, and yeah. So I second that recommendation. So thank you for those 2 recommendations.
If anybody else needs some book recommendations, hit me up.
Yeah.
I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know, like with the coffee thing, we all love coffee. I think everyone recording music or in music, almost everyone like is a coffee addict. The most people that I know, at least. And like, yeah, it's too early to really like say that it has a positive effect, but I feel like this like this post-lunch hole that I usually fall into, like this afternoon tiredness, is like a little better right now. I don't know if that's the thing, but like when I had a coffee in the afternoon, it would keep me like energized for a while, and then I would become really tired really quickly, and that is like evened out a bit now.
Yeah, I think you're going to end up sticking with this change, because for me it made a difference. But I've got one more hack for you. Oh yeah. I don't drink coffee after 9, which with the exception of today, because it is currently 9:39 and I've got a coffee in front of me. So broke my rule today, but whatever. Okay. Normally I stop by 9 because I like to give myself, like I'm normally going to bed around 9 so that I can wake up at 5. And so that's my 8 hours. But another hack for you. Decaf coffee is actually really good, man.
Really?
Yeah. Decaf coffee doesn't taste different at all. It just doesn't have caffeine.
Okay, so I have to tell a weird story now, and then we go into the episode, because I have like kind of this childhood trauma with decaf coffee, because I remember when I was like a very small child, I always wanted to be an adult. I never like wanted to sit at the kids' table. I always wanted to, like, I always thought I'm older than I actually was. And one thing that was always like, one thing that I always wanted to do was I wanted to drink coffee because all my, like, the adults drank coffee. So I always like insisted on having coffee, and of course my parents wouldn't give me one. And then my grandpa gave me like decaf coffee and said I can have this. And then I drank it. I was all excited that I could finally have coffee. And it was the most terrible thing I've tasted in my whole life. But I was too proud, of course, to admit that it was terrible, because I got on their nerves for such a long time that I finally got it, and I didn't want to admit that it was terrible. So I said that I really liked it, that I enjoyed it. And from that day on, for like years, at least in my that's how I remember it, I always had to drink like decaf coffee when we visited our grandparents, because I never like admitted that it was awful, and I always drank it and I always pretended that I liked it. And so I have this childhood trauma, and I can't even think of ever having decaf coffee again because of that.
That's hilarious. It's like everybody's first beer. Like, this is good.
Yeah, exactly.
And then eventually somehow we start liking it. So
yeah, exactly. But maybe I should give it a try again with the decaf coffee. So you do that?
Yeah. I make it in the AeroPress just like any other cup of coffee. Delicious.
In the morning or like after 9?
After 9, yeah. Okay, so if I want to have more coffee after my dedicated caffeine hours, I'll go ahead with a decaf.
Okay, that's interesting. Maybe I should give it a try. That was the lamest hippie banter intro that we've ever had. But
the self-recording band podcast where you learn about stoicism books and how to get better sleep and drink decaf coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like it's true. So yeah. Anyway, let's get into today's topic, and that is about vocal production, vocal arrangement. We've been talking. I think that topic came up in the last episode, and I thought we should like move on straight to making an episode like this. So it's about how to make your chorus pop with these 5 vocal arrangement hacks. We're gonna talk about what you can do to make your choruses big and make them stand out, make them more impactful by adding these or trying these vocal arrangement things that we're going to talk about. And why you want to do this, we're going to explain that, why that's even important to have a chorus that stands out, to make the chorus pop. So we're going to explain that. And we're going to talk about how to exactly do it and like give you these 5 tricks that we came up with. And I'm excited. I can't wait to dive into this. This is a great topic. It's not so much about recording, like the technical aspect again. It's more about the songs, but that's kind of become a theme here because we're all about the songs and the impact.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Your life as an engineer or mixer or whatever you are is like so much easier when you take care of those things and do the arrangement, the songwriting right.
Yeah. Anybody that plays an instrument eventually starts learning some little lead licks. You know, like if you're a guitarist especially, you start learning some pentatonic licks that you can start whipping out to show off and take a solo while you're jamming, right? And drummers have their little rudiments that they like just blast in there, you know, are totally out of place all the time. And every instrument has these little things. And that's like your bag of tricks, you know?
True.
And what this episode is your production bag of tricks. These are little hacks that are like, how do we make this better than it is right now and more exciting? And that's what we've got here. We've got 5 little secret tips that are just like, this will make it better and more exciting, and it's going to make everybody in the room happy when they hear it.
Oh yeah, totally. And I tend to, like, I use these very regularly. It's like not something that I occasionally do, but these are almost like standard things. And they don't get like boring. Like you can always do that. They just work. These are just like staples that just work, and they are used on so many productions for a reason. So I mean, why would you want to make the chorus different from the verse and the bridge or like all the rest of the songs? Why would you want to do that?
Well, a lot of reasons. I mean, like, that's kind of a rhetorical question because it's like, obviously you want that. Almost always.
You might be surprised how many people send me stuff to mix where it's just one vocalist, the whole song, and no extra elements in the choruses. And like, it is obvious, but still some people just say, okay, well, we have a singer, we have one person singing, and that's what we have. and that's how they send it, and they don't even think about that. So
okay, here's another thing. Anybody that's good at writing emails knows that you have to use a lot of exclamation marks to portray that you're happy.
Oh yeah.
and it's because people can't see you. They don't know what your emotion is on the other side of things. So you're overcompensating to get that done. And done effectively over the medium. And I think there's a little bit of that in the recording world, where if you're watching a band live and there's only one vocalist, you can still tell when the chorus hits, because the whole band gets a little more like the dynamically things take off, and emotionally, where we don't have that visual feedback with a recording. So I think layers and these kind of production tricks that we've got up our sleeve here are ways of portraying to the listener that something important is happening. We're essentially adding exclamation marks to the end of the sentences to show them that they're at the chorus. And I talk like that a lot, actually. I'm realizing now when I'm in a production with a band, is assuming that the listener is stupid. And not that I think they are stupid, but if we just kind of assume they're stupid, even if they're smart, which hopefully they are, we know we're going to accomplish our job. But okay, we have to let them know that the chorus has happened. So we need to up the dynamics and add something here so that the chorus contrasts the verse in an impactful way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. You might not even notice that you're in the chorus if you're not doing that. So there are some songs where it's just not clear, and where it is you lose the listener sometimes if you don't do that. So totally. Yeah, so what you're saying basically is you want to have some dynamics in there. You want to have the chorus. Usually you want to make it bigger. You want to add the exclamation mark. You want to make it stand out. And yeah, that's just that reason alone is basically almost sums it up, and that's almost the reason enough to do it. But also a thing for me is that sometimes the message of the song, the lyrical content, what the song is all about, is often in the chorus, or the most important part at least is in the chorus. And with adding these tricks that we're going to talk about, you can increase the emotional impact, and you can support the lyrical content in the chorus. You can make the listener feel it even more. You can make it more exciting. You can make it more dramatic. You can make it more emotional. You can create a real goosebump moment. And so that's, depending on what the song is about, clever arrangements can really add to that. So yeah, that's also a thing, a reason why I want to really work on the choruses and make them really get the message across.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually a very cool way to think about it. Is now you have to really underline the point of the song.
Totally. And you can also ruin that. If you come up with really cheesy harmonies or whatever, or really cheesy stuff, and it's a very serious or sad song, you can also ruin it. You can become something that's not supposed to be. But if you do it right, it can really add to the lyrical content and what the song is about.
The chorus is kind of, I'm sure that's a Western term that came as long as pop music's been around, that's been a term, and everybody knows what that is. And it's we just write songs based around choruses now. It's if you don't have a chorus, the song's not even worth recording. This almost the mentality. So a lot of what we're talking about today is going to be focused around that, how to add, some big space to it, some depth to the chorus, an atmosphere, but also just making it more memorable and hooky and catchy. That can be a lot of the goal as well, is just how do we make this hook into people's memories so that they're going to remember this part of the song.
Oh, absolutely. There's also a little thing here that has nothing to do with the arrangement, but I just want to add it here because you said the memorable thing. Sometimes it can be a good thing to do a part that is repeating in the song, to do it to record it separately, to record each chorus even if it's the same. But sometimes it's even cool to copy the exact same thing for the exact same for that exact reason, because if you have one chorus that really works and you copy that exact thing, maybe you add something to it, but you copy something that's there and use an exact copy of that, it gets more memorable, it's easier to remember. It's even subtle differences are a little different. And if we hear the exact same thing 3 times in a song, we really remember it. And a chorus is a lot about that, depending on the genres, of course. Pop music, of course, like everything that's supposed to be catchy, or when you want to people to remember the song and sing along to it, you want it to be memorable. Other genres not so much. Like if it's a math rock or like prog whatever stuff, that's not supposed to have a very catchy chorus sometimes. That's okay too. But if you want to have a catchy chorus and if you want people to remember it, those extra elements in the chorus that make it really stick out are helping a lot.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that idea, because I think people just think copying and pasting is just a lazy way to save time.
I do it on purpose, actually.
Yeah,
because of that reason.
Yeah, totally. Like, think about how many songs you've heard that you didn't like the first time you heard them, or you weren't sure if you liked them. If you didn't like a song, you're probably not going to start liking it. But if you just heard it and you were kind of indifferent to it, but then by like the third listen through the album, you're like, oh my God, this song, I don't know how I was sleeping on this. This is an amazing song.
Yeah.
I think by the kind of the method you were just describing of using a exact replica chorus, you're kind of speeding up that flow of people getting used to something. And so it's a tool you can use to make your song more catchy. It's very cool.
Totally. I totally make that decision every single time. Sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes I think it's the right decision to record 3 choruses 3 times, just because it shouldn't be exactly the same. But if it's supposed to be a really catchy thing, like a pop punk, or in my case, because I do a lot of punk rock and rock music, or just a pop song, or something that just should be super catchy, you're doing yourself a disservice if you make it too different. Because you can always add additional elements. It shouldn't be the whole thing, shouldn't be the same thing, but you can copy the main vocal line, you can copy the background vocal arrangement, just something that's exactly the same, because in our subconscious, like the way we perceive it, it's different if it's like the exact same thing or if it's just a subtle difference there. It's just not, it doesn't stick. So, yeah. All right. So what you also said was the thing about atmosphere, space, and depth. And that's also something, if you have just one vocalist, one vocal track, it's kind of 2-dimensional. Of course, it can, depending on how good it sounds, it can have a sense of 3-dimensionality, and there can be effects and stuff. But if there are additional layers in the back of it, that immediately creates more, if done right, creates more depth, because you have one vocal that's more up front, you have the others like sounding a little further away, and these layers increase the sense of depth, and they make the lead vocal stand out even more, because now you have this bed of backing vocals that support the lead vocal. So they shouldn't mask it, they shouldn't take away from it, but instead they should help like build a contrast, like a front to back contrast, sort of. That's how I think about it. So yeah, these additional layers even like help the lead vocal. So that's also something I really like about that. And many people are afraid of adding more vocals because they don't want to take away from the lead vocal. But I think if done right, the opposite is the case. They should not get in the way. They should support it.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. And then talking about contrast, there's something that you said before we started the episode. Talk about that real quick. What you mean there exactly?
So what came to mind was Mumford & Sons immediately. So Mumford & Sons, I'm sure everybody's heard them. And their first few songs were essentially just one repeating thing. And it was so like, strumming guitar and a vocal. And then rather than changing parts, they just emotionally changed. It just got like louder and more intense, and everybody stomping and clapping louder. And so that became a trend, and I think it's still existing in Canada pretty strongly, where instead of changing parts musically, you're just emoting and changing the emotion, and that's fine. That can be really cool. But what I was struggling with in some productions was that it wasn't contrasting, like the chorus might not contrast the verse enough, and I needed there to be more separation. Again, assuming that the listener is dumb and we need to tell them that there's a chorus. So that's where tips like this, like the harmonies and layers and stuff like that, where that can really be the big cue to the listener that there is a new part in the song. Even though you're hearing the same chord progression, this is the chorus now.
Oh, yeah. Totally right. The added texture, and you're right. I haven't thought about it that way before, but the Mumford & Sons example is really spot on. There are a lot of bands like that actually that are, where you have the same elements, it just gets louder, more intense.
Yeah.
And it can be cool, but yeah, you're right. It's basically the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of my favorite songs are like that. I think it's almost a sign of like if somebody writes a 4-chord song that is just 4 chords and it's an amazing song, it's like, wow, you really figured it out. You did it, But there has to be that has to exist. The chorus has to exist. And if it doesn't, the whole thing falls flat.
Yeah, totally. And you can do it with minimal arrangements. I mean, if you think of a live band, that's just 4 or 5 people, and they play the verse. One person sings. They have 2 guitars, bass, drums, and then the chorus kicks in, and just one of the others starts singing harmonies. You immediately get that sense of like, yeah, we're in the chorus. Like, there's a thing that wasn't there before, an additional texture. So just adding that one more thing can totally separate the chorus from the verses and add that additional texture. And yeah, I definitely like that. It doesn't even need to be much louder or more intense to be a chorus then, if you do that.
No, definitely not. Quick example, is the song Wagon Wheel, was that a big, huge thing over there in Germany?
I mean, the fact that I don't know about it doesn't necessarily mean that it wasn't the big thing. Before I say anything, I would say no, but again, I'm not a great reference.
I'm betting that every North American listener just groaned and just like turned off the podcast when they mentioned the wagon wheel, but it was so overplayed. But it got done by a country guy, like a cover over here got done, and it became a number one. And this was like probably 5 years ago already, so actually old by now. But
I just looked it up. Yeah, 2013. Darius Rucker, Wagon Wheel.
Yeah. Well, there's an older one by a band called Old Crow Medicine Show, and for some trivia, they actually took some of the idea for the song off of Bob Dylan from like an incomplete song or something like that, some weird thing like that. But their version is like this straight up bluegrass, nasally voice, hillbilly tune, banjo and fiddle and a guitar, and it's a 4-chord song, doesn't change once through the whole song. And really, the only difference for the chorus is that a harmony kicks in. But it's like the perfect example of it could not be more clear what the chorus is, and it makes all the difference in the world. Totally recommend checking that out if somebody wants an example of what we're talking about. You know what the chorus is, even though not a lot has changed.
Absolutely going to put that in the show notes. Can't wait to check that out myself. But yeah, sounds like a great example. Those like 4 chords all the way through songs can be really exciting. Like sometimes, surprisingly exciting. And that's also interesting because when we write songs for our bands, we often tend to think that we cannot do that. Like we have to come up with something different. Like the chorus has to be different, and there has to be a bridge, and the second half of the verse has to be different. And like which is often true and can be great, but sometimes adding a little extra texture can be enough. And you just have to, you have to be bold if you want to do something like that, because it feels like you need to change something when you actually don't.
Right.
Cool.
Yeah. So should we jump into some hows?
Now you know why you want to do it, and we already gave some examples, kind of what to do. But now we're going to dive into the specifics of how to do it and what you can actually do to achieve those things we've just mentioned.
Yes.
I'll start with the most classic one, the most simple one that most of you, probably have heard of or done, and that is doubles, and like stereo doubles. So you have like one double on the left side, one double on the right side to make it wide. So you have one in the verse, you have one vocal track, and when the chorus kicks in, you have the same vocal line but just doubled. So 3 exact copies of the same track. Three exact takes of the same track, not copies, so it doesn't work if you just copy it. But 3 exact same takes of the exact same thing, one pan center, one pan left, one pan right, and then all of a sudden you don't have the mono vocal, but it just becomes wide in the chorus. So that's one thing. Then there's another thing where you just use one double instead of the 2, so it's just a mono double behind the lead vocal. And double always means like the exact thing, not harmonies, not any, like exactly the same take, just another version of it. And a mono double behind the actual lead vocal, that's one thing that I always think about one example I always think about when I do that, or when I think of that effect is like Dave Grohl's voice on the Foo Fighters. They do that a lot, like this chorusy sound all the time. So there's just, it's just two times Dave Grohl singing the same thing, one a little bit louder than the other, mono, and it creates this chorus effect. They probably use chorus and flanger and stuff like that as well, but much of it is just this double that's pretty loud, and that gives that chorus-like effect.
Yeah, and you can use both of these, the wide panned out doubles and the mono up the middle doubles, or varying degrees of both. You can swap between them, but vocal doubles are hugely popular especially in rock production, and pop. I guess it's something that's happening a lot, and if you haven't experimented with that, you totally should. I definitely appreciate when I get sent some vocal layers to mix.
Yeah, absolutely. And little trick, if you do vocal doubles, it's a wise thing to do them like part by part, or like line by line. So not do the whole song and then all the doubles, but like if you have a line that you want to have a double for, like if you're recording the chorus right now and you want to double the chorus, immediately after you got the take right, the lead take, the main take right, do the double immediately, because it will be easier to reproduce what you just did, because it has to be an exact double, like the timing and everything has to be spot on. And it's easier to do that if you've just done it, rather than like 2 hours later and you got to get into the same headspace again. So
yeah, the timing and the pitch have to be really great. It's kind of like doubling guitars, like we've talked about in previous episodes. It has to be as close as possible. Now, the only pushback I'd give to that is if the vocalist is on a challenging song.
Oh yeah.
I prioritize that lead vocal first and just get that all done, so you have it, and you can, because you don't want to blow out their voice singing doubles. They're not really worth it compared to a lead vocal.
Oh yeah, that's true.
But even then, if that's how you're doing it and you're coming back to this after the fact, I always like to let them listen to it a few times before we go for it, the part we're trying to hit, and break it down as small as we need to so that it's nailed. You really want it to be tight.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to add, and that is because the most annoying thing about vocal doubles not being tight are probably the S's, and that's what you can listen for. So what I absolutely hate is when people, you can align that a little, you can do some trickery afterwards, but when people send me doubles and at the end of a line is an S, and I hear like this from left to right, that's just not good. You want to avoid that at all costs. So, you can do something in mixing and editing, of course, but just make sure you get it as tight as possible when recording.
Yeah.
And by the S's and plosives, you really hear if it's tight.
This is also a fantastic way to improve your vocal abilities, is by having to nail doubles. You might think that you are listening to what you're doing, but not until you have to sing the same thing multiple times do you realize that now you really have to listen to what you did.
Oh yeah. Good. Then why don't you move on with one of the things? You can pick any of those 5 that we've written down. I'm just curious what of those you actually do a lot and you actually enjoy a lot.
Well, okay, I think the second one on our list is actually a great thing to move on to, because I kind of consider it very similar to our doubles.
Okay.
And that is using low and high octaves. So this is essentially very similar to doubles because it's the same notes. It's just either drop down a full octave or up an octave, normally in a falsetto for that. And I really like this effect because it really blends in easily. You're not introducing any new melodic information, really. It's just really kind of depth that gets added, and you can sneak it in there in really cool ways. It always is one of those things that you ask them to do it. They're like, okay, sing a low octave, and they're like singing like Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
And they're like, this sounds ridiculous. And I'm like, just wait, it's gonna be okay. Trust me. And then it works,
Yeah.
You duck it in, you're like, yeah, see, that sounds cool. You can't even tell that you did that. So you have to kind of convince your vocalist that it's going to be okay in the end.
Yeah.
It's also one of those things that I bet you'll notice it once you do it a few times, you'll start noticing it in other productions you're listening to, that there's these octave layers all over the place because they just work. If the lead vocal worked, it's going to work.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the nice thing about them is they can open up a chorus or make it thicker by, like, the low octaves make it thicker, the high octaves can open it up without EQ. Like, if you want to make the chorus a little more airy, have a little more top end, you don't even have to EQ the vocals differently. You just need to add those those high octaves, and all of a sudden, like there's this additional air and like presence to it, and energy sort of also. So totally agree. But yeah, it takes a little convincing, and especially if you are in one room together as a DIY band, and like you probably have headphones on, and maybe there's someone in the room without headphones who's only hearing the person singing. It can be a little weird, and you might feel a little weird just standing there doing a falsetto or singing like Johnny Cash. So you gotta get used to that, definitely. But you should get over it and just do it anyways, because it's really, really worth it. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, and I mean, other than that, it's like really the same thing as doubles, as you said. It's no new melodies, same thing. Timing has to be right. Pitch has to be right. Yeah, that's actually what you could describe as additional texture. It's just another texture. Yeah.
There's power in that, we should mention, because if you were to add another instrument playing something different, it takes up a lot more space. It's like once you depart from the same notes and timing, like that's a lot harder to fit in there into a mix. Yeah. So if you're just trying to add a little something, an octave layer or a double layer is a great way to sneak it in there and know that you're going to have the space to do it. So,
and proof for that, what Malcolm just said, that you don't even notice it if done right, is I have done it quite often. There's been a couple of records where I've done it where people didn't send me doubles or like octaves, and I just took their lead vocal, copied it, pitched it down an octave and up an octave, and snuck those in. So they sound really artificial, really weird. But if I wanted to make the chorus a little fuller or add this like air to it or this like texture to it, I just did that, added it in, and never ever had a band like commented what I've done or like that they wanted it to be removed or something. They don't even notice. It just works. I hear it. It's there. It makes the chorus better. But it's so subtle that that no band ever commented on it. Maybe they heard it, maybe not, but at least it didn't annoy them. So if the artificial octaves didn't annoy them, the real ones certainly won't. So, yeah.
Do you use little altar boy to do that?
Yes, a lot. Yeah. That or the built-in Cubase pitch thing.
Okay.
Like where you just drag it down an octave. But yeah, little altar boy all the way. Like super awesome. Because what's also cool about that is you can change the format, like how the voice sounds. So it's a little less, like it blends a little better if it's not the exact same thing. You can make a male voice sound a little more female and like vice versa. And so that's a cool little plugin where you can manipulate it in a way that it's like someone else had sung the octave.
Yeah, I've used. We're talking about a pitch plugin called Soundtoys Little Altar Boy, by the way, and I've used it to full on create harmonies. So not even octaves or doubles. And I've had the band message me, thanks for singing on the track, man. This is cool. I'm like, oh, that's still you.
Yeah. But how do you do? I mean, let's move on to the next point, and then I'll ask you this question, because the next point is actually harmonies. So up until now, we've just been talking about doubles and octaves, which is the same vocal line. All we did is either like do an exact copy of that or a low or high octave of that. Now, when we're talking about harmonies, it's a different melody, but that has a like harmonic relationship with the lead vocal, of course. So it's not just some melody. It's just like it's harmonies to the lead vocal. If you know what that is, you know what we're talking about. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of hard to explain. So you need some music theory, or you need to look it up what a harmony actually is or what that sounds like. Because I know that some people have a hard time coming up with harmonies or like getting the concept. But yeah, it's a very basic thing, a very basic technique. And the easiest one, or the most common one, at least I think so, is like to sing a third above the vocal line. So you altering between major and minor thirds, depending on what the song is and like what the mood of the song is, and like that's like my starting point. Like when there's no harmony and we need to create one, I start with the third most of the time.
Right. Yeah. Third, definitely a go-to. The fifth is another pretty easy one to jump to.
Yeah, totally. And I want to ask if you create harmonies with the Little Altar Boy plugin. How do you do that? Because that is static. Like you can do a third, but then it's always a major or always a minor third, which doesn't really work, right?
Correct. But you can get creative and automate the steps. So it's not perfect, because it's very rigid movement. But if the vocal phrase is like sung in a way that there's little gaps where you can write an automation on the plugin to change what note it's spitting out. You can make it happen with that. So
that's cool.
It's been done.
That's cool. I'm so spoiled with Cubase because it has this built-in Melodyne thing where I just copy the thing and then I drag the notes where I want them to be, and then it's like super quick. But
that sounds awesome.
Yeah, but I like the manipulation you can do with Little Ultra Boy with the formants and stuff. So that's
yeah. I also love the gain built into Little Ultra Boy, where you can kind of like add some distortion right on it.
Yeah, you heard it. We're cheating all the time when we're mixing and producing. But that's because these vocal arrangements things are so important. We wouldn't do that if we didn't think it would really help the song. So
exactly.
We just need these things in there to make the chorus pop. It's just part of production. And I can't think of many really great songs, maybe a couple of examples, other than a couple of examples where it's done on purpose, where it's really minimalistic. Those exist, of course, but I can't think of many like great productions that don't have at least one of those elements in them that we're talking about here. So,
right.
Yeah. So, yeah, thirds, fifths. When I prepared this episode, I was thinking about ways to help people come up with harmonies or to get the idea. And as I said, it's kind of hard to describe, to explain. Is there anything you do to help people come up with that?
I mean, using a plugin like Little Ultra Boy can be a quick way to just kind of like experiment on the fly. You just like duplicate the vocal, throw that plugin on, and drag it around and listen to it in real time. And that might just kind of like, oh, that note worked there. Get that in your head and start like messing around from there, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So that can help. But I would recommend just getting a little like MIDI keyboard on your phone where you can kind of just like learn to play it out. And, you know, half an hour on YouTube, you're going to have the basics down of how to figure that out from then. You know, you'll find the note you're singing and you go up a third and that'll get you started.
Oh, totally.
So it's not too tricky, but you just have to put in some time.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I'm so glad I learned the piano when I was a kid. I played it for years. So I feel like that made it so much easier for me to come up with things like that. I mean, I can do it on the guitar, but the piano roll is so much more intuitive for me. Like I can instantly, when someone sings a melody, I can go to the piano and instantly play the harmony to that without thinking. It's just natural. I can't do that on guitar as naturally as I can on the piano. So
that's cool.
So what I wanted to say is, like, if you are into getting more into producing, be it your own music, or if you want to become a producer or whatever you want to do, I think it's worth to at least know your way around a piano roll in a basic way. Just learn piano basics. It's like really valuable, even to someone like me. I'm doing almost exclusively rock and heavy music, and there's not often that I have pianos in there or something, but still, I use it all the time, these skills. And I feel like this is the perfect instrument for arranging, the perfect instrument to start and to get into music theory. And yeah, the more arranging and producing you do, the more valuable it is to know a little bit of piano, I think.
Oh, yeah. Any virtual instrument inside of a DAW is going to be piano rolled out. So you have to get used to it that way anyways. Any vocal tuning is kind of displayed on a piano roll. You're going to have to get used to it that way as well. So I don't think it's optional.
No.
You don't have to learn how to play piano, but you have to learn how to understand what a piano roll looks like and equates to as far as notes.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so then we get into the more fun stuff, the more not so obvious stuff, but still, I think, pretty common techniques. It's just not the really basic stuff like doubles and harmonies. And that is like effects doubles. That's what I called it in our outline here. So what I like to do, and there are more than I said here, but that I'm more than I put in our outline. But one that I like to do is I like to do a lo-fi kind of double. So I'd like to either use a crappy microphone or like filter it really heavily, like take the top and bottom off, distort it, put it through a pedal, something like that. So like this radio-ish or like megaphone type of voice, maybe.
Right.
With some cool, unique texture to it, and I add that underneath the lead vocal because that adds some extra mid-range, some grit. You can do that with a delay also. You can throw a slap delay on it and distort that. That can sound pretty cool if it's like this lo-fi thing. So yeah, that's something that I like to do. Sometimes I distort it pretty heavily to add energy, to bring out the the breathing and all the details in the voice. So that can help a lot if you just have the mid-range and you compress and distort it a lot, and you mix that in with screams or aggressive vocals. It really brings out the aggression, the details, and the breathing and all that. I don't know if you do something similar, but I always mess around with something like that typically.
Yeah, I love this stuff. So there's kind of two, just so our listeners are clear, we're both talking about using effects to create layers, but also creating layers recording one more double and then using effects on top of that as well. So lately, something that's not on our list that I've been loving is rather than adding reverb onto the vocal take, like the lead vocal, I like to record a double and then throw a reverb on that 100% wet. So the reverb is actually coming from an entirely different take. So it doesn't really match up to the lead vocal. And that sounds pretty weird.
Yeah, but it's awesome. I like the idea.
Can be so awesome. Yeah, I definitely dig it. I'm also a big fan of distorted vocal layers like you are.
I do that, what you just described, I do that with the micro pitch effect, the micro shift effect. So there's this, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's this classic vocal effect where you take a double of a lead vocal, one left and one right, what we've been talking about in the beginning, and then you pitch one of the doubles slightly up just a few cents and the other slightly down just a few cents, and you delay them a little bit. And that is that creates this kind of, sense of wider picture. Or you can even do that without doubles. You can create fake doubles with that technique. So you take a lead vocal, put that effect on, and it creates those two doubles that are just a copy of the lead vocal, slightly pitched up and down, slightly delayed. And then you have this fake double. And there is a device like a legendary effect that has that as a preset in, and nowadays we have plugins that emulate that. And that there's also by Sound Toys, I think it's called Microshift and Little Microshift.
Yep.
That does that. And what I like to do is I like to use that effect not on the lead vocal itself, but exactly how you described it. I like to use it on a double and then all the way wet. So it's the same thing. It adds these artificial doubles, but not to the lead vocal, but to another layer.
Yeah.
So same principle.
It could be cool. There's times where I want to affect the lead vocal, but there's times where I just want it to be clear, pure, and kind of left alone, and everything else around it's messed up.
Oh yeah.
There's time and a place for each, but that can be really cool. That's why it's so important to have vocal layers recorded, so that there's ammo to do these weird things with, so that we have the mixer, like Benny has, something to mess up, to grab and distort and then layer behind that lead vocal. You should always give your mixer some vocal layers, I think.
I think so too. You can always mute stuff if you don't need it, right? So
yeah. One more that I think we both really like is the whisper double.
Oh yeah.
Where you get some layers of whispers of vocals. So you're doubling the vocal again, but in a whisper. And this can sound so crazy cool.
Oh yeah. Tell me more about where you use this, because I hadn't thought about it the way you thought about it. I think I thought about it in regular vocals to create intimacy and to bring them a little closer to the listener. But you've been talking about the more heavy stuff where it actually works well too. So
yeah, I mean, I actually use it on sung vocals mostly as well. But how I discovered that people were doing this was that people were layering it into screams, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. and then I just tried it, and it turns out it really is interesting. It sounds awesome.
Yeah, maybe just explain what that really is, like a whisper double. It's an actual whisper, right?
So somebody literally whispers into a microphone the performance, and you still want to try and get the timing as good as you can. Pitch is kind of less of a thing, especially if it's really whispered. There's no pitch, but it's just this airy, breathy tone that can really be blended in to taste. And again, all of those past kind of effects layers we were just talking about can be done to the whisper track. You can add some stereo width, you can add reverb or delays to it, and make that the affected vocal and just duck it behind your lead vocal. I mean, you really got to experiment and have a vision in your head of what you're looking for, but this is a very cool texture that I don't think is used as often as the other techniques we've been talking about on this podcast.
I think so too. And that is especially useful if you want to bring the vocal a little more upfront, a little more closer to the listener, because if you add that and if the timing is spot on so that you don't perceive it as an additional vocal that's distracting, but if it's really spot on, it can really sound like the singer is like right at your ear, like very, very close. And that's a pretty cool effect. And both for very soft, intimate songs, as well as for screams where you have the sensation of someone screaming at you from very close distance. So yeah, that's totally cool. Also a weird thing to do if you're not used to it. So it takes some, like, you need to be brave to try that, but it's worth it. It's really, and also it's fun to do things like that. Once you get over it, it's really fun to experiment. And yeah,
definitely. One little tip, do that last, because whispering is actually bad for your vocals. It's hard on your vocal cords, and people forget that or just don't even know it. So you don't want to ruin a vocalist's day just because you were experimenting with whispers.
Oh yeah, that's a great general tip, because people, when they start feeling that that they're losing their voice, they start whispering in an attempt to to not cause any more damage, and they're doing the exact opposite by doing that. Whispering is actually harming or doing damage to your vocal cords, and you're going to lose your voice even quicker if you do that.
So this may be total baloney, but bear with me, and my word is law, so believe it. You should probably look into this and fact check me here. But how it was described to me was that when you whisper or you yell, your vocal cords are essentially moving too much. So if you were to picture two chords, when you shout, they're going to react really quickly and potentially kind of like snap tight kind of thing. And when you whisper, they're flopping in the wind kind of thing, like uncontrollably in an unsafe manner. And both of those things are bad kind of thing. So when you're talking at a normal volume, they're kind of moving in this controlled range. And that is good, and why that's the least damaging thing you can do for them.
All right.
So there you go.
I just believe it. I don't even want to check it. That just makes sense to me. So
I'm an expert on this.
I mean, it's enough to know the consequences, because they are very real. So you don't have to know why that is. But it's
I like having a visual representation of what the hell's going on.
Yes, that's why I like this explanation so much. Yeah, cool. Any other effects doubles that you can like think of or that you use? Those are the main ones for me, but
yeah, those are the main ones.
I mean, other than pedals and crazy stuff, but we've been talking about that in another episode. You can always try crazy shit, whatever you want to.
Yeah, I mean, if you can think it, you can do it. So this is enough to get you started, I think, and just go from there. Like, actually, something that the band I showed out the most on this podcast, probably Shed Monkeys. They, on a song we did recently, they've got breaths in it, so it's like and stuff like that, and we made layers of that, like as percussive instruments almost, and that turned out really cool. Your voice is an instrument, so utilize it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's not on our list of the 5 hacks here, but these ad-libs type of things and additional vocals are worth mentioning. Maybe like it's what's the word for it? Like honorable mention outside of the list, because they are not part of the main vocal arrangement, but they just like these ear candy things again. Like they can be breaths, it can be just some backing vocals thrown in there tastefully that can add to a chorus. So no rules there. Try stuff like that.
Totally.
Okay, then number 5 on our list here. The 5th hack here has nothing to do with the chorus itself, but it is making the verse before the chorus smaller or narrower or more lo-fi in order to make the chorus pop more. So you have the chorus is perfect. It's like wide, it has the impact, it's just the way you want it, but still it doesn't like pop enough. It's just doesn't stand out enough. Make the verse smaller. Like take away from the verse and the chorus will benefit from it.
Yes, definitely. Anybody that's done like any mixing has probably been told to cut instead of boost, and this is the arrangement equivalent of that. It's the recording equivalent of that. Is instead of trying to keep adding more and more to the chorus, take something away from the verse, and that might solve your problem.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's also why all these techniques we've been mentioning, you should not use all of them all of the time in every song, because then they lose the impact and the effect.
Yes.
So use them tasteful, use them in the choruses or a bridge or some part that has to stand out, but not all the time, because then, they won't have that effect. In the verse, especially like the seconds leading up to chorus, you can take all of that away, or not. You shouldn't use all of that in the verse, anyways. But you can, of course, have harmonies in a verse, or a double in a verse, or something in a verse. But maybe not all the time, or maybe if you have something in there and it really needs to be in there, maybe there's a way to make it a little smaller or narrower towards the end, or create a gap before the chorus hits, or something like that. Just some arrangement thing you do to create that impact when the chorus hits. And you've heard that a couple of times probably, when there is like this instrumental gap and then maybe a word or two, or like leading up to the chorus and then the chorus hits, or where suddenly the music or the voice turns lo-fi for a couple of seconds or for half a bar, and then the chorus hits, something like that. That's just there to make the chorus appear even bigger.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And you can take this right to the writing stage. Is like, how are we going to translate this as you're writing the song into an explosive chorus? And I love when stuff comes like that. It's like, yes, you thought of it right from the ground up, like you built the song this way, and it works so well now.
Yeah, and like the opposite thing is, and that I really don't like that, if I get that, is when it seems like someone just wrote a verse, a chorus, and a bridge, and they just put it together without any like transition or anything. That sometimes happens, and it's just such a shame. If that's the case, just put some thought into it. Make sure the chorus really pops, and don't be afraid that the verse might not be big enough. Like, I agree that the beginning of a song maybe shouldn't be too small, or it shouldn't take too long to get something exciting in there, so you really get the listener like right from the beginning. That's important. But after like the intro or the first couple of bars, you can really slow down a bit. You can really take some energy out of it. You already have the listener. You can create some dynamics. You can really make it smaller, and it's not a bad thing. You don't need to be afraid here. And I was afraid of that for a long time. Also in mixing, I always wanted my drums to be punchy, no matter if I'm in the verse or in the chorus. And now I find myself more and more backing that off in the verses a bit, and like not having full-on drums and wide guitars and vocal harmonies and everything in the verse. Just so that the chorus has more impact.
Yeah, you have to give somewhere, It can't all be as explosive. Like if it's all at 100% the whole time, there is no dynamics. So if you want that chorus to pump, if that's the goal, is the chorus has to jump, then you have to give up somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. That are our 5 hacks here. So to sum it up, we have the doubles, left and right, and mono. We have the octaves, low and high. We have the harmonies, we have the effects doubles, and we have the arrangement trick of making the verse smaller to make the chorus appear bigger. Mm-hmm. That's the 5 things. And I think if you mess around with these, if you experiment with these, that can get you pretty far already. So, yeah.
Great.
Have fun experimenting.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing some of this. I'm sure somebody's going to put it to use.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to hear it. Also, let us know if you might, like as always, some of you might have their own techniques or tips and tricks and stuff that they found out over the years or something. Just let us know. We're always curious. We like to learn stuff, especially the not so common stuff. So let us know what you do to make the chorus pop, and we see you, or hear you, or you hear us next week.
All right. See you next week.
Bye.